Obasanjo knows everything that is required to sit on that seat. Whoever wants to be the president must meet up with 4 factors, which he summarized in the acronym TVCP.
Obasanjo is in search of a 3rd term by proxy. In other words, he is saying that Peter Obi is a puppet.
President Obasanjo asked Akin Oshutokwu and I, we had not joined government at this time. On one occasion, he said we should leave the villa, leave his sitting room, because he would not hear any talk of OPC or any talk of secession or the rights of the Southwest. He was very, very firm.
Hello, my great and wonderful people. How una day today? I hope all of una day well. Today, Abenoves. You remember I said it, I want to be say you see us, they laugh from the beginning like this. No, say there is fire on the mountain. Obasanjo don't spark fire. Yes. This endorsement of Obasanjo to Peter Obi don't they spark a lot of fire for internet. People don't they come outside, they speak their own mind. Some day when it be said that they condemn Obasanjo totally. Why some see day when it be said they stand out to also they review more and more concerning the revelation when it be say Obasanjo don't already release. Now will they release the videos to you one after the other? We don't really get time to even explain anything so that we fit cover space. I beg, before we begin, we want to beg you because this video fit take a little time. Sit down, wait with us because a lot they want to be say we need to deal with for this very broadcast. And before then, I beg help us to like this video because I'm the only one who say YouTube and Facebook will help us recommend this video to each and every one of us. The more this video get likes, the more YouTube they recommend this video to each people all around the world. Now their own policy now be that very one. Thank you so much for your support. Now I'll first of all leave you to watch this very interview when EBC Kenneth Okonkwo, barrister Kenneth Okonkwo, grant to Channel Television, still on this issue of Obasanjo to Peter Obi. I'll come back for more.
And Obasanjo said, and this is making reference to Peter Obi, and let me allow our viewers to see this. He says, one other important point to make about Peter Obi is that he's a needle with thread attached to it from north and south, and he may not get lost. In other words, he has people who can pull his ears. If and when necessary, he has a young and able running mate with a clean track record of achievement, both in public and private life. That statement has now been criticized as such that Obasanjo is perhaps seeing Peter Obi as a puppet that he can play around with as soon as he gets into office.
Well, first and foremost, there is the saying that the greatest place in hell will be reserved for those who keep silent in times of moral crisis. Nigeria is going bad, not because of the violence of the bad people, but because of the silence of the good ones. Obasanjo has refused to keep silent in times of moral crisis. We are in a crisis in this country. Obasanjo wants to escape going to hell by being an accomplice to corrupt leaders. Because any nation that votes corrupt politicians are no longer victims, but accomplices. Now, Obasanjo has never kept silent in times of moral crisis. He went to jail because of it, and he came out, became a president, like you rightly pointed out. 11 years, this man governed Nigeria cumulatively, as a military president and as a civilian president. No Nigerian has had that privilege. And fortunately for him, and unfortunately for them, no Nigeria may be privileged to have it again.
President Buhari, if he ends his term, yes. As soon as he ends his term, he'll be able to fall between the rank of the likes
9 years plus
of Olusegun Obasanjo.
No, 9 years plus. Cumulative.
But we're talking about those who have been head of state, military, and civilian.
Obasanjo has 11 years. Why I brought this issue is that Obasanjo knows everything that is required to sit on that seat. Let us come to his letter. In law, the reasons for a judgment is more important than the judgment itself. That's why when a court gives judgment, we the lawyers say, no, we want to hear their reasons. Let us hear the reasons Obasanjo enumerated in his letters. He said, whoever wants to be the president must meet up with 4 factors, which he summarized in the acronym TVCP. Track record of ability and performance. You must check the antecedents. You must check the past. Then he talked about vision that is authentic, honest, and realistic. You must check the future. Then you talked about character and attributes of a child of God and obedience to God. That's talking about integrity. Who are you when nobody is looking at you? Then he talked about physical and mental abilities with soundness of mind. I can't put it in a better form. He's talking about the qualities that we need in the next leader. When I heard these gentlemen talk, I was really asking myself, is Obasanjo in the ticket in 2023? Because they were just talking about Obasanjo this, Obasanjo that. And we are talking about recruiting the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I will tell you what Obasanjo saw in P2B, and then you will do the matchmaking, and the Nigerians will do the judgment. Obasanjo saw in a man who has the capability to secure and unite this country. He did it in Anambra State. He secured Anambra State from being the worst secured state to the best by the confirmation of the IG of police then, Muhammad. He saw in P2B a man that will unite through not leaving anybody behind. No ethnic, no religious, no section will be left behind in P2B's judgment, in P2B's government. Obasanjo looked at P2B and saw a man that will shift emphasis from consumption to production through running a production-centered economy driven by agrarian revolution and export-oriented industrialization. Obasanjo saw in a man who will build world-class and expansive physical infrastructure, not through borrowing, but through integrated public-private partnership and entrepreneurial public sector governance. He saw in P2B a man who will leapfrog this country into the 4th industrial revolution through scientific and technological innovations to create digital economy. Obasanjo saw all these things and sat down and wrote a letter and said, if we want a Nigeria that should be redirected from poverty to prosperity, the only man that can do it is P2B.
All right, my great and wonderful people. I hope say you're ready. We just the begin. Oh, it gets a lot and a lot. As we promised before, we don't waste time. We dey take you direct to another studio reaction, still on this very issue. Stay with us.
But just like I asked Mr. Nia Kinshu, how does this come to your party?
Well, thank you for having me, and good evening to Nigerians. You see, no doubt the letter of the elder statesman, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, there are quite a number of things in that letter that cannot be argued, like his assertion about APC. Yes, I agree with him that the last 8 years was a perilous time. It was a period, or it is a period where Nigerians will not want to think of it again, or ever think that we will have a repeat of that, which is the reason why I believe that Nigerians are not going to vote APC in this election. So he's right in that. But the part that is wrong, which can be summarized in the 4th to the last paragraph of that letter, in fact, the big one, where he referred to Peter Obi as a needle that has a string, a rope in it, where he said he can as easily be controlled when he goes wrong. That is the crux of his letter. Obasanjo is in search of a 3rd term by proxy. In other words, he is saying that Peter Obi is a puppet, and that's why I believe he should be voted for, because at any given time he goes wrong, I'm guaranteeing you people, the Nigerian people, I am going to control him this way or control him that. But let us go to the fact and issue. Obasanjo, in the greatest respect, lacks the moral turpitude to become the father of the nation. There are about 5 presidents, former presidents alive today. None among them interferes with the country, and with every president like a meddlesome interloper like President Obasanjo. Yet, if you look at the letter, from the beginning to the last, it is all about me, my, and I. Me, my, and I. He rated his own administration from 1999 to 2007 as impeccable, but he could not find any element of praise to give to any administration after him. And in fact, he did not even praise any administration before him. In other words, Obasanjo believes that he has the celestial powers to predict the future of Nigeria and the leadership of Nigeria. Unfortunately for him, that attitude is antithetical to democratic ideals and governance. The democracy that was handed to us by the First World is a democracy of popular participation by the people. In other words, it's a democracy where the people choose on the basis of their choices and not one man using a letter to threaten and intimidate the entire nation that if a certain direction is not taken, then doom lie ahead. But let us look at the character of that person, because it is not just about the message, it's about the messenger. If the messenger, it does not have a profile, his message cannot be conveyed by your television house. And so let's look at it. Obasanjo thinks that democracy is as defined by him. He has virtually destroyed every concept of democracy in his entire reign. To begin with, when we talk about whether he has weight or whether he has a voter's value, when he was brought up in 1998, as soon as he got out of the prison, according to the former governor from the southeast, he said Obasanjo did not even have 200,000 to buy the form. He bought for him. Obasanjo today has Otafan, has Presidential Library, and Otafan supplies product not only to Nigeria but to the rest of Africa. That's point number one. Point number two, people came together and donated their resources and their infrastructure and structure to make him a president. Even in 2003, when just his vice presidential candidate threatened to quit, he was rejected until people came together and the vice president again committed the loyalty to him, and then they went on. He did not win his polling unit in 1999. In 2003, they practically rigged his polling unit. So if you look at it on the evidence of value, Obasanjo does not have the moral ground to begin to call the presidential aspirants or candidates of a political party as people that he could direct. And again, let me say this, and it's very important. Obasanjo is the only president incomparable with even Asiwaju and Peter Obi and Atiku. All of them, I will make the case that they have a better quality than Obasanjo. Let me give you an example. Obasanjo ordered the killing in Odi. Obasanjo ceded Nigerian Bakassi to the foreign country because of allegedly his ambition to become the United States Secretary General. Obasanjo, under a democratic governance, ordered the shoot at sight of OPC people. Obasanjo's treatment of Asari Dokubo under a democratic governance can better be described as a military dictator. Obasanjo has instituted the foundation of what they call Ghana must go politics in the National Assembly. It has been reported. Obasanjo used 3 people to impeach a sitting governor in Jos and started dealing with him. Obasanjo picked some lawmakers in Bayelsa, brought them to a hotel in Abuja and impeached a sitting president. Obasanjo had media, international media houses speaking to him. They asked him questions he was not comfortable about. He was threatening to send them out of Nigeria. Obasanjo appeared before Stephen of Hard Talk BBC when he was questioned about corruption in his family, and Obasanjo threatened that if it was not out of courtesy, he would take up the matter against that person. This is the picture of the person that now has stand as the alpha and omega of democratic ideals. It is even strange to me when he projects Peter Obi as better candidate. Is it not the Peter Obi that the Panama paper indicted? Is it not the Peter Obi that governed in Anambra for the period that he has governed? He domiciled the money of Anambra in a bank to which he was a shareholder, and he was appropriating profit to himself. Is it the Peter Obi that told the whole world he doesn't have a house?
Mr. Bwala, apologies to jump in quickly. I mean, anyone who is hearing, who listen to you now, we imagine that this is coming out of bitterness because perhaps if the endorsement had come the way of your candidate.
All right, my great and wonderful people. I believe say all of you don't see that very one. I would say never tire. We still get more and more in regards to this very letter. Small letter when it be say Obasanjo right. It don't become another wahala. I like the last question when it be say Shehu ask this man. Say, it be like say this your reaction. Say na bitterness. Now they turn to now. All right, hold on. And again, we get this one when we say they come from Femi Fani Kayode. When it be say he also they describe the encounter when it be say he gets with Olusegun Obasanjo. Remember say Femi Fani Kayode they stand with Amebola Tinubu, right? He don't know say Obasanjo will go this way. He issued this very press conference first before this very time. I want me to listen to Femi Fani Kayode concerning Obasanjo. We'll come back.
Let me just start by saying that I'm here wearing two caps. It was last night that I was asked to say a few words here to represent our candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But I had already planned to come here in my own personal capacity. So I'm speaking with two hats here. But let me start with a goodwill message from our candidate and also to launch from him. Then I'll say a few things on my own behalf. First of all, our candidate extends his tremendous respect to the author and to the subject matter of this book. It's a great book, long overdue, and it'll be very revealing to the Nigerian people precisely what the contents are. And we have always had respect for Mojid. He's somebody of immense integrity. He's somebody that people can relate to, and he's somebody that Asiwaju has tremendous, tremendous respect for. Unlike most, he always seeks the other side of the story, and that's what makes him so special. So we are fully behind him in this. Asiwaju and his entire team, and there are others here as well, very senior members of the campaign organization are here. And we're very proud of his effort as a Nigerian to come out with this great work. And the way in which he did it also speaks volumes about what a good journalist he really is. And it's our pleasure to launch this book. I will not specify the amount, but the candidate has asked me to say we will launch it with a very handsome amount of money, and we will collect 10 copies to take back today. So that's that aspect, and that's the message from Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, on a personal note, let me say this. I'd just like to quickly speak as somebody that was working and still is one of the most loyal people and people that just revere President Olusegun Obasanjo. Like Ifeko said earlier, I had the privilege of working under him as a spokesman and also as a minister. And there's nothing that has been said here that the bishop said or that has been revealed in this book about the content of his character that surprises me. And anybody that thinks that President Obasanjo looks stupid, as somebody had suggested, or he himself has suggested to Chidoka and others in the past, has to be pretty stupid themselves. All you have to do is look into his eyes when he's speaking, and you'll know the depth of this man. He's extremely intelligent, very discerning, very sharp, very firm, very, very tough. And most importantly, he's very patriotic. He loves this country with a passion. And I'll give you 3 examples of that very briefly. The first one was when he came in and I first started interacting with him. He was so hostile to the idea of the OPC and Yoruba secession. And many of us were alarmed because we felt that, look, after what he had been through, that surely he would understand the aspirations of some in the Southwest that wanted to break off from the country. President Obasanjo asked Akin Oshutoku and I, we had not joined government at this time. On one occasion, he said we should leave the villa, leave his sitting room, because he would not hear any talk of OPC or any talk of secession or the rights of the Southwest. He was very, very firm. And I've never forgotten that experience. That is the measure of his love for Nigeria, even though he had been through what he went through in the hands of the military administration that had locked him up and framed him up. So that was the first one. The second one was when I was minister, and the German ambassador came to the office. There were some issues, some aviation issues, and we had decided to be very hard on the Germans and the French and some others. So we grounded them. We wouldn't let them fly to Lagos. They were being unfair to us. And the German ambassador was very rude to me. He was rude to me in front of my staff and the media and everything. We still have the recording, trying to tell us how to run our affairs in the country. And of course, I would have none of that. And I asked him to, either he would leave or I would leave. And I really told him off. The minute I finished and I walked out on him with my whole team, I knew that this was trouble. So I immediately put a call through to the villa to report myself, so to say, to try to reach the president. And I reached him on the phone. I said, sir, they're going to report me because I've just been very rude to the German ambassador, and I'm going to write a letter to his foreign minister, or I'll ask our own foreign minister to write. He had no right to. Baba asked me what happened, and I told him. And what he said to me was, well, we will accept anything you do as long as it's in the interest of Nigeria. I'm fully behind you, don't worry. He didn't stop there. At the next council meeting, cabinet meeting, he issued a directive. I'll never forget that day. He didn't mention the incident, but he issued a directive to all the ministers that we will not allow ambassadors from other countries to interfere in our affairs here. So all of you, please stand firm, don't let them interfere, and carry on your work. That's when I realized that there is no way, unlike most leaders, and I have to say this, in this country, this man will never compromise on the integrity of this country. He will never back down, and he will never allow any foreign power or any foreign person to tell us what to do. So I'm not surprised with what is in those letters. One last example, and this is a very interesting one. I was assigned to be the person, the minister, to be with the late Muammar Gaddafi when he came to Nigeria. It was the summit of African heads of state and South American heads of state. And of course, Gaddafi came in great fanfare. I was quite shocked. It was an honor for me to be asked to be with him, you know. So I waited for him at the airport. We were all waiting, and people were coming in. And when he arrived, he came in 2 planes. There were about 200 people on the ground already from Libya, all his security team. It was very intimidating. But when the great leader now came down, we got in the car to leave the airport to go to town. And we were stopped at the gate. And, you know, I was so embarrassed. The security people did not let us go past. We went back. I apologized to him. We went into the hall. And of course, you know, he speaks English, but he hardly spoke it. He didn't speak it on that day. It was a very embarrassing situation. I put calls through to my boss in the villa, General Abdullahi Mohammed. I don't know what's going on. They said, well, you know, he has to, the arms that they're bringing in through the boots of their various cars. They had about 200 cars of their own, which they had flown in, that they have to be dropped off at the airport. Otherwise, we won't let them in. So I found myself in a very difficult situation. After a while, they came and said, okay, it's time for us to go. We can now go in with all these bodyguards and everything. We got into the car for the second time. We got to the gate for the second time. They blocked us for the second time. At this point, Gaddafi got out of the car. He walked from where the car was and said he's going to walk all the way into Abuja in the sun. And everybody else, all his bodyguards, the drivers, they all got out. And there we were. And of course, I had to go with him. We were walking down the road. And I was thinking to myself, what happens if this man, you know, he was an elderly man, it was the sun was like, what happens if something happens, he drops dead? I mean, we can't walk all the way to Abuja. It was a terrible situation for me. So again, I reached the chief, I said, look, don't worry. I said, we're walking to Abuja, we're right here in the streets. And the man said he's going to walk, that if they won't let the cars in, we'll walk. So the chief of staff said, look, don't worry, that the president is on his way to the airport and he will resolve the issue. That's what saved the day. And I whispered to Gaddafi, I said, look, sir, your brother is coming here to resolve this issue right now. So please let's not walk any further. He said, coming? I said, he's coming right now. He's on his way to come and solve this problem. So he said, okay, that's how he went back into the waiting room. When we got back to the waiting room, within 15 minutes, the president arrived with great fanfare. And he came straight to see Gaddafi, greeted him, you know, very, as if nothing had happened. That's what struck me. And then Mr. President now said he's going to Lagos to do something. He's coming back later in the day. And then Gaddafi now told him there were some issues. Mr. President said, don't worry, it will be resolved. And he was leaving. As he was leaving, I went after. I said, sir, what are we going to do about this? You know what Baba said to me? He said, they must drop those arms. They're not going to allow them to take them. Oh my God. So I realized we still had a problem. So I went back. They said, okay, third time, let's try. Do you know they stopped us one more time after that? And until those arms were removed from the boots of those cars, we were not allowed in. It was after the arms were removed, that's when we were allowed to come into town. And that's the measure of the CNC that we had in those days. It was an honor and a privilege to serve under you, sir. And let me tell you, Nigeria still hasn't done justice to what you have done for this country over the years. I dare say it here and now, the best cabinet that we ever had in this country was the cabinet that you formed in 2003 up until 2007. You gave us leadership, you gave us courage, you gave us strength, and you allowed us to disagree with you in cabinet meetings, and that was the greatest lesson of all. So I congratulate you, I congratulate Mojid for this wonderful book, and may God guide us and lead us all. Thank you very much indeed.
All right, my great and wonderful people, I believe say una don't see Femi Fani Kayode. Remember today, see Femi Fani Kayode, na spokesman of Bola Tinubu, in this stand with Bola Tinubu. And this incident happened, this interview happened for 2020, before Obasanjo turned to Peter Obi. I believe today, Femi Fani Kayode no fit stand to give Obasanjo all these accolades. So for you to understand, say, politicians, anything will be said that they do for their own personal interests. Because I wish, say Femi Fani Kayode know, say today, Obasanjo will turn against his own principle, which is Bola Tinubu. He no will ever fit stand to applaud Olusegun Obasanjo like this. Tell the whole world, say, now Obasanjo, now he constitutes the best cabinet member for his own time. I believe so now hear that very word from his own mouth. All right. Now, I will take you straight down to the last video for studio interview when it be still concerned this fire for the letter when it be say Obasanjo right. I'll come back.
Mr. Akinshiju.
Thank you very much, Sheun. First, I'm also a member of the Public and Media Affairs Directorate of the APC-PCC. And by virtue of that, I'm also a spokesperson of the APC-PCC, talking directly to the issues at hand. I think that we have established a track of not exactly embracing, the person and the personality of General Olusegun Obasanjo. As far as we are concerned, there are 3 statesmen. We have 4 living former Nigerian head of states in the person of General Gowon, General Babangida, General Abdul Salam, and of course General Olusegun Obasanjo. To our mind, those first 3, Gowon, Babangida, and Abdul Salam, had shown themselves and established themselves as statesmen. Hardly do you see them come into the arena. And to a large extent, we have extended our respect to them over the time. Then, of course, we are not bothered about this endorsement. For us, it's so much of wind, so much of violence of wind. And because to our mind, the exact precedence, the exact background to the person of General Obasanjo in terms of performance in office does not sell him to us as a credible individual that we should seek his endorsement. And of course, since 2019, he had gone his way, and we have not been bothered. We know that during his term, 7, 8 years in office, he didn't perform. Despite all the opportunities, despite all available resources, at his beck and call, when the world was in a festive of what do I call it? Tailwind. When the world was in a festive of opportunities, so much that the price of crude oil was jumping. It moved from $19 a barrel, in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003 to more than $30 per barrel. By 2007, it had moved to more than $70. But despite that,
You know, in 2003 to 2004, when the National Living Standards Survey was conducted by our own National Bureau of Statistics, more than 62% of Nigerians were living in absolute poverty. That time that we were making so much money. And in that, the National Living Standard Survey is like this current multidimensional poverty index survey. In that survey, one of the indicators was the monetary value, monetary metric, you know, of poverty, which was measured at more than 69%. And we had just about 140 million Nigerians at that time. So you are talking of a government, of an administration that has so much resources to play with. But because there was a lack of processes, a lack of policy conception, and lack of policy, you know, implementation, Nigerians were more poorer, you know, despite that kind of resources we had. Now we can also say that the highest possible level of inflation this country you know, that had risen in this country since 2000 to 2022 was recorded during that administration at 28.2%, you know, in 2005 August. Before, in July, it was 26, you know, August it went to 28%. And till today, we have no other administration that even achieved that kind of inflation rate. So, and of course, we are talking about the democratic credentials, you know, of General Obasanjo in office. What you come about is a hopeful distress, you know, memory of how the state officials, state security agencies and all that were used, you know, to harass people in government, harass governors. Governors were actually kidnapped, you know, by state security agencies. This is someone that will claim democratic credentials. You know, we have the case of Anambra, even in the same case of this Peter Obi, you know, and Ngige.
All right, my great and wonderful people. I believe say all of you don't see all the reactions by ourselves. We don't really get much to add to it again because we don't really consume a lot of time. We'll leave you to share your own opinion with us in the comment section. What do you think concerning the stand of Obasanjo? Leave them for us for the comment section, whether good or bad. We're here to receive your feedback. Now we'll draw the line here. And before we say final goodbye, we'll quickly use this media to appreciate each and every one of you for your time when basically stay with us up to this moment. God Almighty will bless you. And equally, the one basically they help us to share this broadcast, your likes, your comments, all of them we appreciate them. I beg, not forget to help us share this very one so that if we still reach our brothers and sisters all over the world, because we believe one thing, say information, not power. And as we do so, God Almighty will bless you. We'd like to draw the conclusion of this program here. We will see you again when we see you. Remember, we love you all. Bye-bye.